pleasure of sitting down with Marie Dillard of Persistent Endeavors Foundation. I just want to introduce you to everybody so they know who you are. An artist out of Englewood, New Jersey, where Art of Living Collective Space is. I'm really excited to have you here and talk about Persistent Endeavors Foundation and how it got started. Can you just begin by telling us how did you come up with it?
Yeah, well, I'm excited to be here as well. So the Persistent Endeavors Foundation was sort of born out of, like, for me, I just felt a need or a calling to do something. I felt like I had some abilities. I was playing soccer and playing viola in orchestra, doing visual arts and things like that, and I just felt as if I had all these different things and extracurriculars and talents that I had, why not try to do something with them? And I was never planning to be a professional violist or a professional singer or a professional this or anything. So I wanted to find a path of how to help, almost to help others, where I don't necessarily have to be a shining star of music, but I can help other people get there. So that's what Persistent Endeavors sort of was made from.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the inspiration and the person whom it came from?
Yeah. So the whole Persistent Endeavors idea came from Reverend Polly Murray, and I learned about them in my sophomore year of high school during Black History Month at my school, and when I gave one of my a chapel talk for Black History Month, I referenced Polly Murray and the quote that includes the words "a persistent endeavor," and that to paraphrase what we are doing, what Black people are doing, it's not just some exceptional ability. It's not just something we could just sort of show up and do. It's like it's a persistent endeavor. It's something that you are working towards, just like everyone else is working towards something. We are working hard to reach these goals and to be who people see us as.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I love is that you and your family have been such an integral part of my village, and I really appreciate the village that you come out of, all of the different things that surround you, whether it be your high school or whether it be the school that you came out of, the community there, your family, but you yourself now are one of the villagers, not just someone who's supported by a village, but someone that supports, some of the younger people in other, villages. And having had that pleasure and seeing you develop has been something that has been such a gift, particularly to my girls who play violin, and you all just have a similar path. And so I'm really interested in knowing about how you saw yourself inside of communities that were not, necessarily predominantly Black and brown, but how did you find your way through those communities and look to help other children? And we can segue and talk about Crescendo that came out of Persistent Endeavors. Yes. So tell us a little bit about Crescendo and how that was something that was birthed out of your foundation.
Yeah. Well, to sort of touch on your earlier sort of question,
yeah.
It all started with when I first went to high school, and I realized there were other Black and brown students who didn't know their way around predominantly white spaces, and didn't know their way around predominantly white spaces that were trying to support people of color. So that's what my high school was, and I understood that if they are saying XYZ in their mission, that they value diversity, justice, and inclusion, that if that's what they're saying in their mission, I will hold them to that. And other people didn't understand that. So that's sort of where I started leading people through, this is what it's like to be a person of color, this is how it's like to act as a person of color at a PWI. It's not being quiet and hiding behind things and trying to assimilate. It's being who you are and sort of stepping in as, I'm not going to hide who I am just because it might make you uncomfortable. So that whole thing that's how that started.
And as artists, we both have mediums through which we express ourselves. So as an artist, you had an even, further in with self-expression and having that ability. So please continue. I just was really excited about that.
Yeah, and so the way that Crescendo was born was that I was doing a passion project boot camp. It's called BLU Passion Project Boot Camp, and it was weekly meetings that I couldn't attend because I had to do my a cappella group meeting, so there was all this overlap.
Okay.
But there were weekly meetings that helped students and other kids my age in Englewood and some in Philadelphia build their passion projects. Some people, they had podcasts, some kids had like other types of foundations. Some kids wanted to be clothing designers, wanted to make movies. Like, if you could think of anything that's creative and something someone could be passionate about, it was there. And so I started building my project out of that. And it still sort of amazes me that I just sort of came up with this in my head. I was like, you know, I want to be able to like help young musicians. Like, that was sort of where this idea came from. I was like, I play music, and it really started off as maybe I should teach this summer. Maybe I should run lessons with kids who might not have lessons, or kids who are just starting to play. Yeah. And it transformed out of something that could still be amazing, just having lessons, but into something that could be more powerful.
Yeah.
And so Crescendo, the reason it has the name Crescendo is because a crescendo is something that starts off soft or starts off small and gradually gets louder or larger. And that's sort of how I saw this program in multiple ways. Like, I mean, I'm starting off small, and also the kids who I'm working with are starting off small. They're either 4, 5, 6, or they don't yet have the confidence in their playing if they're older children. And so just being able to get them from that small, soft point to the larger, bigger, more confident space is what the goal of the program is.
Right. And I mean, as a person who's been educated in the arts, one of the things I say all the time is that I didn't experience education outside of an arts education. Like, everything that I learned, everything that makes sense to me came through the lens of an art form. And what I love about Crescendo, and what I've experienced as a parent, having my children, you know, leave the sessions with you being really excited, is that it's not just a skill or information, but it is being around you and experiencing what you have, what's become a part of your, you know, craft and how you express yourself. Because it's the confidence that's come through, right? You know, saying you didn't have pursuits to be some big star, you know, it really speaks to me, because that was never my goal either as an artist, to become someone who achieved stardom, but someone who could make sense of the things around me and be able to express myself in that, you know, world. And having that confidence, I think, is something really huge, especially for our Black and brown children, because being educated in any space, especially predominantly white spaces, it's just really important to carry confidence with you, even if you're strong and wrong. You know, I leave sometimes with the kind of, you know, you just move and, you know, you show up and you want to be there. And so I really admire that. I also want to touch on some of the ways that you share not just technique and skill, but you expose these young artists to other composers that they may not have otherwise been exposed to. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, so that's another, I was just about to say, that's another way that Crescendo, that's another way that Crescendo was sort of born. Like, I have always been a lover of history and into American history, and that's what I want to do when I go to college, when I major in American studies. And I've always cared deeply about the study of history, and I noticed that, like, not a lot of people care about history class, not a lot of people are interested in it, and not a lot of people know the things. Like, there's so much information out there because of how many people have existed in the world and how much has happened, that not everyone can know everything. But there are some things that, depending on what you're doing, if you're a musician, if you're an engineer, like whatever you're doing, knowing the people in those spaces that look like you, that's important. So that's what I wanted out of this program, because I was like, I can make something that meshes together two of my passions. Like, this is awesome. Like,
it's amazing.
That's just what it was. And so I've been teaching the students in this pilot about different composers and different musicians who are Black, just about who they are. Like, and it's a learning experience for me as well, because I didn't know a lot of these people existed either. Mm-hmm. So I'm going through and teaching a 6-year-old who Chevalier was, and I didn't know who he was until recently, and I'm learning along with him, and I'm able to teach him, or not even teach him, because for the younger kids it's more of a exposure, versus for older kids it's like, I have to teach you or tell you who this person is, because you know who Mozart is, you know who Vivaldi is, you know who Bach and Brahms are, and Beethoven, but you don't know Ignatius Sancho, like you don't know all these people, and so I'm teaching you and I'm reading these stories to you, and then we're having a conversation, versus with the younger kids, I'm showing them a picture of them, playing music by them, and we'll dance to it, something that instead of having to teach something to them, I'm sort of ingraining it in their upbringing.
It's becoming their norm as opposed to kind of shifting and saying, you know, we exist too, to the older kids. I love that.
And that's something I realized throughout the program, because I was like, how am I supposed to teach a 4-year-old or a 6-year-old who Chevalier was? Like, there's all this stuff about his life that I can't necessarily mention to, or they won't understand. How do I talk to them about all these operas that they wrote? Do they know what an opera is? No, they don't know what an opera is, and all of these different things. And I just realized that for them, I'm not necessarily teaching them as much as I am exposing them and making it so that when they grow up, it's not a question of who is Chevalier. It's, oh, I remember hearing about him.
Absolutely.
I kind of know who that person is, instead of black people were composers in the 1800s. What? Like that's the 1700s. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I also, this area where we are right now, this being North Van Brunt Street, we're next door to the Bergen Performing Arts Center. You have been, you know, born and raised in Englewood. You've attended school here in Englewood, and one of the things that I love is that we had the space to be here in Englewood, because there are so many children in this community, young people, including my own 3 daughters, who crave exposure to, you know, people that, you know, look like us but come from so many different backgrounds. You know, because black and brown people are not monolithic, you know, we exist on so many different spectrums, whether it be arts, sciences, you know, creative writing, poets, you know, so many ways that we exist in the world. And I love that Art of Living Collective was, you know, just still here and going after opening during the pandemic, as a space that I use, you know, for my own artistry, for my development, to find ways through some of the miseducation that I, you know, had gotten myself, you know. And so I've been learning a lot from you and other artists that have been kind of breaking through some of these barriers, especially during the time of the pandemic, where we had a lot of time to think about what wasn't working. But here we are, downtown Englewood, offering these gorgeous, beautiful services.
Yes,
to
I just
young
wanted
people.
to say, like, this space, I was thinking about it earlier today and throughout this month, like, the only reason that Crescendo was able to happen was because this space was here.
Wow.
Because before you called, I was like at my grandma's house trying to get everything together. I was confused. I was like pulling things out of my ears, like, I don't know, how do I create a foundation?
Absolutely.
How do you do this? What am I doing? How do I get the kids involved? What forms do I have to make? And my mom told me, she was like, oh, Miss Andrea Patterson has a space, and she wants you to be there. And it was just like a breath of just, like, I could just breathe for a minute.
Yes.
Because I knew, like, okay, now I have a space for these people. This is something that can happen. This is happening. There's a space. They got 4 walls.
Absolutely.
There's a bathroom.
There's a bathroom.
There's
lights.
There's
air conditioner.
Like, this thing can happen. Like, there's a location where this can. I don't have to go to people's houses, have people at my house figure out how that works, or go outside and risk them getting distracted by a park or a bird or a squirrel or whatever. And it was just, I'm just so thankful and grateful that you are here, the Art of Living Collective is here, because it's just like, I just think it's so amazing how a space with just 4 walls in Englewood, an office space next to a dentist, everything, can have so much magic happen.
Yeah, it's purposing the space. You know, Art of Living Collective, it literally, the name itself, the art of living, right? We are living people. We are creating in our lives, and there is an art to it, right? There's a way, there's an art of conversation, right? There's an art to everything, and what I mean by that is, like, it's not necessarily going to be perfect. It's going to be messy. We're going to make messes, and that's what this space is for, you know? And I really, having Art of Living Collective be, centered around allowing the arts, not just theater, but the arts to be the way in how we express ourselves and how we move through the world. Like, having this space has been something that I have found, people have come in here and worked on their, like, pieces that they're performing on their own, like solo pieces. People have come in here and worked on, like, thesis papers and books and, things that I would never imagine. But having a space that's purposed for the creative, for the artist, no matter what the medium, is just like, I didn't even know how important it was for me. And so to see you thrive in it, and to see young people run in here and be really excited, it's just so good. I want to ask you one last question. This being the pilot, your program started this summer, right? I wanted to ask, what is something that you learned from your students, or something that surprised you? Like something that caught you and you were like, ooh, I didn't expect, this.
Well, I think the first thing that just surprised me overall was how excited, like, these kids were and these students were. Like, I asked Elliot, so I was like, after the first program, the first session, I was like, was this fun? Did you like this? And Elliot was like, yeah, I did. And I was like, no, look, it's fun.
Look at me.
Please, tell me. So you can be honest with me. I'm like, I'm only a couple years old. Was this fun? She was like, yeah, I like learning about it. And, like, being able to see the light switch come on for a lot of these kids is like, hey, this is fun. Or if this is what, for the younger kids, saying, like, if this is what playing the violin is, I love playing the violin.
Yes.
Like, one of the students that is coming today, he's so excited and so eager to play the violin that he just wants to not set up, and he's just,
yes. Hey. And I remember when the girls were like that too. Yeah.
I'm like, hey, we gotta take it step by step. But seeing how excited they are, and how he'll say, I love the violin, I love playing the violin, or I don't want to leave, I want to stay. And I'm like, you gotta go home, but I'll see you next week.
That's everything.
And so that has been amazing itself, because it's just so shocking for me that there's something that I created that is getting a response.
Yeah,
like
I mean,
this.
I would pick the girls up and they would literally not be able to stop talking for 30 minutes. I mean, you come off from school, your parents ask you, how was your day? Oh, it was fine. I mean, seriously, I stopped doing that because I'm like, I feel a lot of rejection coming here. But, as soon as she got in the car, she couldn't even get in the car. And both of them having this feeling of joy and telling me something that I felt like they were able to tell me because it was something that they cared about. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you learn things and you think, oh, I need to learn this because somebody told me I need to learn. But this was stuff that they cared about. So I thought that was phenomenal. What did they teach you? The students and coming in contact.
They taught me. I think it's sort of strange, but, like, they taught me what it means sort of to be someone that people would look up to. Like, as a teenager, I have always looked up to a lot of other people.
Yeah. And
so seeing that, one, like I said, their interest in it, and seeing that they're looking at me as, okay, I'll listen to you, we will follow what you're doing, I'm inspired by you, I want to do what you're doing. That has been something that I've learned, just by seeing them, how they react to me. But something, I guess, that I've learned as well is, like, you have to have a lot of patience, especially with the younger age groups, and you have to be responsive to them or receptive to them and follow what they're doing. And I learned a lot of that sort of thing in an internship I did a few years ago, where I was doing a lot of interviews. I was interviewing a lot of people, and you have to follow what they're doing to sort of, get their answers without deliberately, like, asking them the questions, or you have to follow what they're saying. So if they say, well, actually, I like this business, and you say, oh, okay, and then you start asking your questions based off of that. But these young children, when they're saying, oh, I want to stretch my belly, instead of me going, like, okay, actually, we can't do that, we have to do this, this, and this, I'm like, okay, let's stretch our belly, like, following what they're doing, so that they understand, like, I can trust her, she's my friend, I'm not their teacher, I'm not, like, I'm not a 40-year-old music teacher, or anything. Like, a kid like they are, and
Yes.
I want them to understand that, but I also want them to understand, like, I'm a kid like they are, and I can do this thing.
Absolutely.
I can focus, and I can do my stop, turn, bend, and set up my violin. But we can also run around and talk about Pokemon for 2 minutes if we want to.
Absolutely.
It's
Because we all need to run around and
exactly.
talk
It's
about
a space where
Pokemon.
I want
Yes.
to make sure that it's fun for them, and I want to make sure that what I'm doing sort of fits into their life and isn't something that, like, when they come in here, it's like, you are only doing music and this is like what I'm putting onto you, rather than like, this is something that I'm offering to you in whatever ways you want. Of course, I'm teaching you this or telling you about this person, but you can fit it into how you feel in your life as you see fit, even though you're a 6-year-old. If you're saying,
Yeah.
oh, I want to play, if that's what you want to do, I will play with you. But if you're like, I want to look at Pokemon, it's like, okay, we can talk about Pokemon, but what about, I heard you like knights. Well, you know, your violin can be a shield. Like,
Yes,
things like that.
yes,
Like, making
exactly.
it something that, in using their language a lot of the time, I was talking with my mom earlier about
Yes.
how important it is to use their language. With the
Yes.
student, again, who's coming today, he'll say, oh, and then, so I have to get the super attack, and he'll put up his violin. I'm like, yes, so we do
Wow.
stop, load the attack, and like speaking
I love that.
in language like that keeps them excited, because no one's telling them you have to be like this. It's like, if this is something you love and this is something you want to do, and as long as you're wanting to keep playing the violin, if you want to say, instead of calling it stop, turn, bend, if you want to call it stop right there, and then super attack, like whatever language you want to use, keeping it free and open, because classical music and everything has been so closed off
Yes.
for so long. I don't want it to be that way in this
Sure.
program. I don't want it to be that way.
Yes, and because the language is so specific, it feels like sometimes, and even with classical training as an actor, you feel like you have to come to that jargon or that language as opposed to it coming to you. And you have found this really brilliant way of coming through it and finding your own language and then saying, let's come together and let's meet, and whatever your language is, you can bring it. And I can accept it, and we can create this space and this moment together. I really love that. And I feel like Art of Living Collective and Crescendo's philosophies really align, because just from a social, emotional learning place, which is really the bedrock of what Art of Living Collective is about, you're really validating these young people. You're saying your voice matters, what you have to say matters, what you like matters, you know, and that, bringing that into a space not only validates you, it makes you want to learn more. You know, otherwise you really don't have any investment. And so I really, really, really appreciate what you're doing. I want to continue to support, you know, what you're doing. The space is always available to you, and I'm really looking forward to following you more, seeing how next year's programming goes, and hearing more about how it all comes together. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for watching.